I'm telling you, this meetup ministry we have is real. Jesus said, right, when two gather in my name, it's when we get together as brothers and sisters and we talk and we share and we have fun. Coming here on a Sunday and giving a hug when I say greet each other is one thing, but meeting up with people and spreading the love, that's a whole nother level. When I look at the images, though, on the LasVegasFamily.news, it's the same people that are meeting up. It's the same people. Either the rest of us are forgetting to submit our pictures, which I do often, or we're shy. I encourage you, if you haven't done a meetup in a while, find someone in this room and be like, hey, want to get coffee this week? Hey, want to watch football? I saw someone here, we were like, hey, let's watch football after this. There's so many times we can meet up and share, but we need everyone to buy in. A community is not just leaders. A community is not just a few people. A community is everyone. We're at a very critical point in our movement's history. And what is really going to make the difference is, do we create the love that we preach about? And that is going to define the legacy of our movement, of our elders, of true parents. So I encourage you, jump in, buy into what we're doing, and the meetup ministry is real. Okay, thank you. I feel like I always have something prepared, and then I have an inspiration when I walk up here. It happened last week, too. Yeah, I feel like your father, right? He has his peace message, but then before the peace message, he tells all the ACLC minister, no spare keys. Do you guys remember that? That was the real message right there. No spare keys. Yes, today I want to talk about love guides the way. In our movement, for those that are new to the movement, you've been here for a while, we have something that's very unique. It's a very unique perspective on human history, on life, and it's called the divine principle. And for some of you here, I know there was recently at New Hope a 6-day workshop learning about it. I know CARP had one. And we're introducing this new way of looking at life to people. When I do the fireside chat, it's always an interesting part of interviewing our elder members. What was it like when you joined? What was it like discovering this principle? And something I've heard often is people sharing, when I heard the truth, I knew my life would never be the same. Members saying, like, when I discovered, I got so excited because I'm like, wow, I got the truth. This is it. I've got the principle. They knew they could never turn back on it. They knew this is the way they would have to go. And this principle became precious. We want to share it. What happens when we have this principle is there was also a byproduct happened. And the byproduct is, wow, we have this principle, we have this standard. Well, now we got to keep it. When you have an absolute standard, when you have like, this is God's way, there's a lot of pressure to have to live up to that standard. Because that's what we're supposed to do. The problem is, I don't know about you guys, but most of us, we didn't come from an ideal background. Anyone here grew up in an ideal family? Parents, anyone here ideal parents? Anyone here never get angry or frustrated with people? I know I don't. That's the hard part. We have this truth and this standard, yet in our own lives, it's a process to live up to it. And for many of us, there could feel a pressure. I have to keep the principle. I have to keep the principle. I have to live up to the standard. For many of us, it could even be a weapon. Have you ever been in an argument with your spouse, child, significant other, friend, and you want to win the argument, and then you pull out the holy grail of trump cards. You listening to the argument? Okay. Well, true father said, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, I win. That ever happened to you? I know I've done it. Well, divine principle says, here, can you read this for me? Oh, I win. It could become this high standard weapon. And while it's great, having this principle helped change the lives of so many and helps give us a direction and understanding. An unintended byproduct is sometimes we forget what the point is. What is the end result? Is the end result we all follow principle 100% correctly? What did God want from the beginning of time? Was God like, man, I'm a singular being, and I just want to see principle. I'm a scientific God mainly, so I just want to see law working in the world. God created a pretty good world of laws. Do you understand how complicated our world is and how everything works together in symmetry? I've heard, I shared this with you before, but we watched a documentary on the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, and that reef, if that reef is not in harmony, the whole climate changes, the whole world's out of whack. From just little coral in the ocean. A tree has all these synergy parts working. Our body has so many things working in harmony, and if one part of our body stops working in harmony, you know what happens to us? We die. If that was enough, God would have been like, yeah, this is cool. Look at this world working all functional. Oh, I love it. But God didn't. Is anyone here that excited? Like, does that make anyone here that excited? Is that like, whoa, I created this computer code and I press the button and the computer, look at the software, it runs perfectly. My life is fulfilled. There was something deeper. There was something deeper God couldn't do on Heavenly Parent, couldn't do on Heavenly Parent's own. What was that? Man and woman, love. Have a relationship of love. If God just wanted principle, God would have stopped with nature. But then God created man and woman in his own image and gave us free will. We're really weird compared to nature. When there's some fly, this fly only lives for like 24 hours. That's a pretty short life. I often thought, what would I do if I was a fly only living for 24 hours? And no wonder flies bug the heck out of us. They don't care. They only got 24 hours to live. Swap me. I'm coming after you. I'm coming after your food. It's yummy. What do we get on that tangent? Okay, so I'm this fly in nature, right? Yeah, nature, when that fly is born, it just gets up and starts flying away. I was at my parents' house in Michigan this past winter, and I saw bees being born. They landed in the pool, and actually there were wasps, which are much worse than bees because they sting all the time. And they were kind of coming out, and they're these little bee things and kind of cute, but they were going to drown in the water, so I pushed them out of the water. My dad later said, why'd you do that? They can sting people. Just leave them in there. But anyway, I pushed the bee out, shook off the water, saw the environment. Next thing you know, a couple minutes later, starts to fly away. Totally at home in the bee's environment. That's the thing with nature. When nature is born into this world, nature's totally at home in the environment. But people, when we're born, we are totally disorientated in our environment. We get out of the womb and we're like, what the heck's going on? I was all warm and comfortable, and then all this pushing stuff happened, and where the heck am I? And I need milk. We're all crying. We're totally disorientated. We don't know anything about this world. We figure it out. I think it takes a deer a day to start walking. It takes us a year before we figure out how to use these legs. That's what makes us unique. We don't learn things naturally. A normal animal just kind of grows up, learns, but God gave us something very unique. God gave us an intellectual mind and free will. Our body naturally can grow, but our spirit does not. And God did that for one basic reason. And that is because so that we could have the power to love. That we could create love. Because love can't be done automatically. My daughter has a doll. She's 4. You push the button and the baby says, I love you. I get annoyed by that baby. When the baby says, I love you, my heart doesn't just go, oh, I love you too, plastic piece of stuff made in China. Nothing in my heart moves. But when my daughter says, Daddy, I feel happy, ooh, that moves my heart. Why? Because there's a choice. You see, if God just wanted principle, he would created us to be dolls. I should give a whole Sunday topic about AI and where AI is going, artificial intelligence. But AI is going to do something, but the one thing AI doesn't have is free will. It's what makes us unique. It gives us the ultimate power. And that power can be used for good because we can create the true love that brings happiness. But boy, we can use that power for bad, and we can create the pain and hurt that leads to destruction. And God gave us that potential for both good and evil. Why did he do that? Let's go into divine principle. Let's talk about the human fall seen from the viewpoint of the power of love and the power of the principle. So we're taught in divine principle that Adam and Eve fell from the original intended way. And the question is, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just keep going the principled way? Well, let's see. Man was created to live in accordance with the principle. Therefore, it cannot be that the power of the principle would cause the fall and throw man off the track. We can compare this to a train which cannot run off the track by itself. For a train to run off the track, there must be a breakdown in the engine or the rail, or an external force stronger than its own running force must collide with it, coming from a different direction. Likewise, man can fall when a certain power, stronger than that of the principle, which makes him grow and with a different purpose collides with him. The power which is stronger than that of the principle is nothing else but the power of love. Love is stronger than the principle. God created our world with that as the ultimate law. That's the law that breaks all laws. Everything can work harmoniously, but if there's one thing that's the exception is, well, I know I made all these rules, but there's one thing bigger than all these rules, and that is love. God has taught us from a speech from Reverend Sun Myung Moon called Love and the Purpose of Life. If you ask God, what pleases you the most? How would he respond? Would he say, I like diamond rings the most? Nah, God has no need for such thing. But God created humankind for a reason. Why were we necessary? God needed to create humankind in order to fulfill his love. It is for the sake of love that human beings are the supreme creations. God's love is the original giving love. It is the unselfish agape love. That's why we're here. Love is stronger than the principle. And that is the order in which we should do things. You see, when we have principle, there's this pressure, expectation. We have to uphold the principle. We have to teach the principle. We have to follow the principle, which is true. But we have a responsibility higher than that, which is our first responsibility is to love. So in practicing unconditional love, there's a principle, and the principle is called love and teach. Love and teach. Love comes first, teaching comes second. I've grown up in this community my whole life. If someone would interview me in a fireside chat, I would tell them I joined in 1988. And growing up, I can say that love and teach hasn't always been my experience in the culture of our movement. Instead, it's been teach and teach. We've been so fixated that we need to educate. Education is the answer. When I was 6 years old, I went to my first, 6, 7? I went to my first workshop. I'll never forgive it. I never will forget it and forgive it. Subconscious mind was coming out there. 6 years old. I'm like, wow, there's kids. I'm discovering faith. And the parents were freaking out. And they're like, our kids have to know divine principle. They have to know divine principle. So they put us through a morning to night 7-day workshop. We did 8 hours of lectures a day. I talked to the pastor who became our youth pastor, and I love her dearly, but she said that was the biggest learning moment of her life. They were too obsessed. We have to know principle. We have to know principle. When I was a youth pastor, I had moms come up to me, and when we did workshops, I had moms come up to me like, Jonah-san, yes, thank you so much for taking care of Nori-kun. Please teach him divine principle. He has to know divine principle. Please. Chapter 2, no fall, please. That mom was scared. Completely. What was the parents' focus? My kids have to learn principle. Why? Because they can't fall. Why? Because they can't fail. Because if kids fail, what does that mean about the parents? It means parents fail. Oh, we're scared of that. Really scared. That's the problem with having an absolute standard. We lose track of what's most important. What we have to do first is love and then teach. Because see, when you teach and teach, you educate and educate, but the answer is always to educate more. But if we don't feel love, we don't want to listen. Anyone here been lectured by someone you don't respect, maybe at work, maybe something else, and you're like, dude, you have no space to talk to me like that, and you kind of zone out? Ever that happened to you? It's because we don't trust them. Parents come up to me sometimes. This is a very common thing. Maybe you can relate. And parents say, yeah, my kids, Jonathan, hopefully you can talk to my kids because my kids really just don't listen to me right now. The reason they don't listen is because they don't feel loved. When you're being educated and taught, it just seems like a burden, another pass or fail consequence. But the opposite is true. When we love and teach, when you feel loved, you want to learn. When someone loves you and you feel you trust them, they really deeply care about you. Oh, you'll listen to them. Not only will you listen to them, you will follow them like a dog follows its owner. Pat me on the head, pat me on the head. Scratch my ears. We'll listen because we feel loved. I want to share a couple experiences I've had. One thing I've been really grateful in the last 5-6 years, I have a lot of experience talking with all kinds of young people that grew up in this faith. And what it was like. One young person, And I'm just going to be very real about it. Texted his mom and said, Mom, I feel really scared and lonely right now. I miss you. That took guts from the kid. The kid was reaching out to his mom, looking for love. The text message came back. You feel lonely, that's because you're not blessed. And that's because you haven't gotten blessed and followed the standard. Whoo, my friend was crushed. I had another example. Young person decides, messed up in life, decides to tell his parents in the car, Mom, Dad, or whatever, I have something to tell you. I've did this in my life, and this was a violation of our principle. Parents freaked out. Hit the brake on the car, turned the turn signal, turned the car around, picked up the phone, called the husband and said, we have to have a meeting right away. Yeah, we have to teach them the divine principle. Right now. This stuff happens. I had another experience where a young person was tears in the eyes talking to me and saying, Jonathan, I understand that I have to report to my parents. So I'm going to report to them where I fall short. But I know every time I do, they're going to freak out. And they're going to lecture me and educate me. And I'm just struggling because I know what's going to happen, but I have no choice. This is hell. Had another one, it just left my mind. Maybe it'll come back. But these things happen. But our first responsibility is we have to love people. Now, loving doesn't mean, don't misunderstand loving. Loving doesn't just mean we sing kumbaya and we give hugs all the time. Sometimes when you love, when you really care about someone's happiness, we have to tell them things even if they don't like it. That's really loving someone. But it's for their benefit. If someone comes up to you and says, I made this mistake, I fell short, they're being very vulnerable, aren't they? They're being very brave. If I'm totally caring about their happiness, I'm going to say, wow, this must be really hard on you. You must be really going through a hard time right now. You must be in a lot of pain. If I'm the spiritual parent, physical parent, anything like that, I might even say, it's not your fault. I didn't do a good enough job supporting you. That people feel it. What everyone wants to feel is you care about their happiness. Then when you educate or teach, they're going to feel it's for their best interest in mind. But loving comes first. When our spouse makes a mistake, loving comes first. When our kids make mistakes, loving comes first. And when we make mistakes, loving comes first. People may join because of principle, but it is the love that will make them stay. Because that is ultimately what we're creating. So we are now creating Heavenly Parents' Holy Community. A community is a whole bunch of group of different people. Think about the community where you live. Is everybody the same? Every community's got different people. We got people with different jobs. We got teachers and bankers and entrepreneurs. Every community has got the family with crazy kids. Every community's got the house with the loud people in it. Every community's got the paranoid old lady that's always watching everybody. We got a variety of people. As we create God's true love here in our Heavenly Parents Holy Community, we're going to get people of all different shapes and sizes. And they're going to come here in all different phases of their life. Most important thing is when they walk through these doors, they have to feel we care about them. It's so easy to want to educate, to give the advice. If our kids come up to us and they want to share something, there will be a time to educate, but first you have to give them love and acceptance. Which doesn't mean you're accepting what they're doing is right. It doesn't mean you're accepting a violation of principle. You're accepting them and saying you care and love them. I had one other young person, man, this is so common. But I had another young person come to me and said, Jonathan, I haven't come to anything in our community for 3-4 years, and I decided I'm going to be brave and I'm going to go see everyone because I miss them. She comes. Afterward, usually it gears more towards Asian moms. Oh, they're the very strong, principled ones. But the one mom came up to her and said, oh, good to see you. I know you've really fallen off the track and lost your way. But don't worry, I have full confidence you're going to come back and realize the truth. She doesn't want to go back. In the Bible, people ask Jesus, what is the most important commandment? His wasn't, hey, don't fall, practice, take action, complete the 4-position foundation. That's most important. If that's most important, we're all in big trouble because it's hard to do those things. No, what did God say? What did Jesus say is the most important thing? Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind. You got to love like you mean it. And second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So brothers and sisters, my family, as we keep growing into this new era of Heavenly Parents Holy Community, let us remember that love is stronger than the principle. We will not make our standard less. We will not say unprincipled things are true. But remember, the first thing God needs us to do is love, because the reason people do bad things anyway is because they're not feeling loved. And when we just educate them, we make them feel more unloved, and they just go back to doing more stuff. Our first responsibility is to love people. Love is stronger than the principle. Let's practice this in our spousal relationships. Let us practice this in our family. And as we build our community, we're going to be getting all kinds of people coming here. And I'm excited because I get a chance to let them know, hey, first and foremost, you are loved. Join me in prayer.